Internal Revenue Service IRS Tax News. IRS provides revised questions and answers for 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit. But first, an attempt at a joke. I apologize in advance. An ex-military air pilot became a tax professional, improving the communication efficiency of his firm. Here's a quick snippet of the firm communication in action. Tax return in process. Copy. Tax return in process. Copy Form 1040. Please copy Form 1040. Roger that. Copy out. Copy complete. Copy out. Tax return completion date scheduled for due date of April 15th. Negative. Negative. Mayday. Mayday. Tango Alpha problem. Repeat. Tango Alpha problem. Completion date scheduled for a Mayday. Stand by. Disregard that. Crisis evaded. Repeat. Crisis evaded. Estimated completion date by April 15th. Estimated completion date by April 15th. Copy. Copy Form 1040 by April 15th. Copy Form 1040 by April 15th. Roger that. Bravo. Roger that. Post April 15th. Tango Whiskey on Delta Flight to Hawaii. Repeat. Tango Whiskey on Delta Flight to Hawaii. Roger out. IR 2021-246, December 10th, 2021, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today updated frequently asked questions, the FAQs regarding the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit, FS 2021-17. There's a link to that here. Individuals who didn't get the full first and second economic impact payments may be eligible to claim the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit. So let's give a recap of the economic impact payments, what they are, how they work. So you might hear them called economic impact payments, EIPs for short, stimulus checks, stimulus payments, and the recovery rebate credit is in essence the same type of thing. They're tied together in that. How do these things work? The IRS is basically tying this information, these type of payments, to the tax return. So you would think under normal conditions that you would file the tax return, the IRS then having the information to give you the kind of stimulus payments based on the income information and so on that's on the tax return. But like with many other things that the IRS is trying to do these days, they want to get the money out sooner. So what they do is basically give the prepayment out. So you can think of the economic impact payment as a prepayment of the recovery rebate credit. It's similar to the child tax credit, which most people, although it's a newer advanced payment system, are probably more familiar with. It makes more sense because they've dealt with the child tax credit before. And normally the child tax credit is something that you get when you file your tax return in the form of the refund. And now they're sending out this prepayment that's tied to the tax return that you haven't yet filed, which is an estimate. So they did the same thing with the economic impact payments. You could think of it at the same thing. They added a new thing to the tax code, which is actually the recovery rebate credit. And then they said, we're going to give an advanced payment. And instead of calling it an advanced recovery rebate credit, which would make sense like the CTC, the advanced child tax credit, they called it an economic impact payment. They might have actually done that reverse. But anyways, those two things are kind of tied together in the same way. Now, we've had 3 economic impact payments that have gone out. The first 2 were in the prior period, and therefore they were prepayments of the 2020 tax return. So they're going out, they went out, before the 2021, so they went out in 2020, so they're prepayments of the 2020 tax return. And so if there were any problems with those prepayments, you didn't get them, for example, and you were due them, then you would think that the way to get them at this point in time would be to file the tax return for 2020 and claim the recovery rebate credit on the tax return at that point in time. The third one that went out, the third stimulus check or economic impact payment, is tied to the 2021 tax return. So if you didn't get that third payment, then you would think that the way to fix that, the last stop in order to pick that money up, would be to file the tax return in 2021 claiming the recovery rebate credit. Now, if you got the stimulus checks correctly for the 3 checks, then this recovery rebate credit shouldn't even really be a thing to you that much, right? Because you already got the payment, and you got the full payment. It's not like the advanced payments on the CTC, the child tax credit, where they only give you half during the year and then you claim the other half when you file your tax return. They tried to give the full economic impact payments going out, so you should be taken care of. But if there's a problem with it, then they've got the default of the recovery rebate credit that you would claim on the tax return, the first 2 payments on the 2020 tax return, the last stimulus payment that, as of this point, on the 2021 tax return that wouldn't be filed until April 15th of 2022 generally. Okay, back to the text. The first and second rounds of economic impact payments were issued in 2020 and early 2021. The first 2 rounds of economic impact payments were advance payments of the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit claimed on the 2020 tax return. So those 2 things are the same thing. The EIPs, the economic impact payments, are advance payments of the Recovery Rebate Credit in a similar way as the Advanced Child Tax Credit is an advance payment of the Child Tax Credit. So individuals who are missing the first or second stimulus payments should review the revised answers to determine their eligibility and whether they need to claim a Recovery Rebate Credit for their tax year 2020. If they're eligible to claim the Recovery Rebate Credit, they will need to file a 2020 tax return if they have not filed yet, or amend their 2020 tax return if it's already been processed. So if you have filed your 2020 tax return and now discover that you didn't get the stimulus payments and you didn't claim the Recovery Rebate Credit, then you'd have to amend it, a 1040X. Typically, if you haven't filed the 2020 tax return and haven't received the stimulus check, and therefore haven't claimed the Recovery Rebate Credit because you haven't filed the tax return, then you could file the tax return. Now, I don't think you have the same access to some of the free resources, like the free third-party software, that you do like in the current year. So it's nice to be able to file the tax returns, in the current year these days, because you typically, the IRS, I believe, is pressuring the third-party providers to provide some free software if your income is below a certain threshold. So you might have to pay for the software to kind of pick that up. This tax returns, even for, low income tax returns, are becoming more and more complicated to complete, given the fact that now you have these things tied to them, including the Recovery Rebate Credit, these stimulus checks tied to the Recovery Rebate Credit, the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credits are getting more complicated. The advance payments for the Child Tax Credit will further complicate things, and the health marketplace type of calculation is another area of complication, typically to lower income taxpayers. So it's nice to be able to use tax software, even on the, almost especially on the low end. Like the middle range might be the easiest tax returns these days. And in any case, so you might have to purchase software to kind of support you to do that, but you can look into your options there. So these FAQs are being issued to provide general information to taxpayers and tax professionals as expediently as possible. More information about Reliance is available. There's a link to that here. More information on the Recovery Rebate Credit is available on irs.gov, IRS FAQs. There's links to those items here. There'll be a link to this in the description.